Hello, welcome back to Steak and Sanity. I'm your host, David, and this is a show about my carnivore adventure. And as you may remember, back in February, I think it was, I had Susie Willows on, who's a nutritionist, and she and I were talking about carnivore diet and how low carb and keto diets can affect you. And one of the things that we talked about was doing a mineral test, which is you take a sample of your hair, send it off to some lab somewhere, and then the lab comes back and tells you loads of stuff about what type of metabolism you have and what you're high in and where you're good and where you're bad and all that sort of stuff. And so we've got the results back. So Susie, welcome back.
Thank you.
Awesome. And I know you've gone through this with me very quickly when we were at an event and we were doing something completely unrelated. And you gave me all the paperwork and you went, look at this and look at that. And I was kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. We'll talk about it later. So today's the day. So first of all, do you want to maybe just quickly in a couple of sentences, just remind everybody what you do and then tell everybody a little bit about what this test is and what it's meant to do?
Okay, yeah, thanks very much, Dave. So I'm a nutritional therapist and a breathwork specialist. So I kind of help people improve their lives, basically through food, through breathwork, or through lifestyle changes. And why I love this hair mineral test that we've done on you is it is non-invasive, although you weren't too happy about me snipping a bit from your hair. So... And
I got over it.
You did get over it. People always do. They moan, but then it grows back. And it can give you a really good overview. So if you test for one thing, what the hair mineral test is, it looks at all your minerals, all your toxic elements, and also it looks at how they are in relation to one another. So, you know, we've sort of got a bit of a mindset of, well, am I deficient in this or am I deficient in that? And what the hair mineral test helps us to do is look more about, are they in balance? So it's not so much having too much of something, but it's like, is it in balance with the other minerals in my body? And when the body's in balance, the body runs nice and smoothly. And when it's out of balance, that's when things start to go wrong.
So I have it here. Should I pull it up so we can look at it at the same time?
Yeah, sure.
I've never shared a screen on a podcast before using Riverside, so we'll see how this goes, but it should be fine. Hey, there we go.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so what have we got here?
So what I was saying is, on your first page, you've got all the different minerals and it's got the absolute amounts. Mm-hmm. And then on this second page that we're showing now, it gives us the ratios. And so the ratios are what I like to look at because that gives us the clue as to what's going on in the body. And the ratios between the different minerals can help, say, look at the different body systems.
Okay.
So as when I said to you before, it helps to have someone who can interpret it. So to a lay person, that doesn't really say much, but luckily I'm going to talk it through. Okay. Yep. So as you can see on here, your first ratio, the calcium to phosphorus.
That one.
This is slightly high. Yeah, that one there. And so if you look here, I'm going to read it on my paper. Your screen is a bit confused. Yeah, that should be about 2.6 and yours is 3.79. So, you know, it's not way off, but it's just tipping out of the range. This looks at your metabolic rate. So interestingly, this would indicate a slow metabolic rate. And so sort of slightly low adrenal activity. So sort of tipping into a stressed state in terms of the pressure you're putting onto your body.
Okay.
What's interesting with this one, given this is all about Steak and Sanity, your podcast, is for this profile, you'd look to make sure you're getting enough protein in your diet. So, you know, I would say looking to have at least 40% protein at every meal that you're having. So it's quite interesting that you've been drawn to that carnivore diet and then your metabolism is also saying that you need the protein. The second one, the sodium to potassium, there you're a bit low, and this one is looking at your adrenals again, your vitality. So again, what it's sort of saying is your adrenal glands are slightly struggling. You've probably got quite a bit of stress on your body, and so they're having to work quite hard to manage that stress response.
So is that where some electrolytes would help?
Yeah, I mean, we'll come on to that.
Okay.
Absolutely, electrolytes. The other thing that's quite helpful with that is I quite like, it's called an adrenal cocktail, which essentially is giving you electrolytes, but you get sort of
Right.
orange juice, you put in coconut water, you put in some salt, and so it's like a drink that you can add to your daily routine that just helps to support the adrenals.
Right. Okay.
Just to give the context, when we are stressed, our body uses up more magnesium, more vitamin C, and more B vitamins. So that's why a lot of the profiles I see, I say you need more magnesium in your life, because
Right.
that's being depleted by the stress, and then your body needs more of it to help deal
Yeah.
with the stress. So it's like a sort of circular loop there.
Yeah. I take a supplement, and then I've been doing a little bit of research into it. My wife and I both take magnesium, but it's actually magnesium oxate, which is the one that isn't absorbed very well, and which I didn't realize, and I think most people don't. And even if you go, I went on a little jolly jaunt around town yesterday, even to like the health food stores, to see if I could find any of the other types, which I can't. Is it magnate or something? Magnesium magnate. There's a couple of different other kinds that your body absorbs much better, and I couldn't find any of that. So I've had to order it off Amazon. So I am going to switch from, because I think the magnesium oxate, you only absorb 4% of that. And it's just because the oxate form your body just doesn't deal with very well. So I am going to switch that over to something that we should be able to absorb much better. And hopefully that'll have some effect as well.
Yeah, what you should have done, Dave, is just messaged me and say, which magnesium should I get? Okay. But I did do a post on it, and I had all the different types of magnesium and what
All
they're
right.
good for, because they're good for different things. Magnesium citrate is a good one.
Citrate. Yeah, that's one. Yeah.
But if you have loose bowels, it can give you loose bowels. So it's not great if you're already loose. But if you err on the other direction towards constipation, magnesium citrate is a great one, because it might loosen things up.
Right.
The other one is magnesium glycinate, and that one's particularly good for helping sleep. So,
Right.
as you know, I work in a health food shop, and if
Yeah.
people come in for magnesium, the first thing I say is, what do you want it for? And
Right.
then we can go to the
And what's the other one? The one that starts with an M?
magnesium malate.
Malate. That's it. Not
Yeah,
magnate. Malate. Yeah.
yeah.
That's the one I'm looking at, because from the couple of things that I read in the videos that I saw, that they're like, if you don't really have any problems with anything in particular, you don't have problems sleeping, you don't have bowel problems, whatever, just take that one. And so that's the one that I'm looking at. So I think we may try that one and see how that works. But yeah, we're doing the oxide or whatever it's called at the minute, and I
Yeah.
suspect it's probably not doing anything, which is a bummer. Anyway, sorry,
And
little
that's
distraction, but yeah.
and that's what this shows us is as well.
Yeah.
It's not taking something, it's can your body absorb and digest it, you know? So
Yeah.
again, supplements are good, but they need to be, your body needs to be able to recognize them and take them in.
Yeah.
So then we've got the calcium to potassium, and this balance might give indications as to your thyroid health.
Okay.
So for those that don't know, your thyroid is just a little gland here, but it's so important for the whole of your metabolism. So I have a low thyroid, a lot of people do. I have really cold hands and feet. My body temperature is always low. So I have the slow metabolism. So it's just that, you know, getting the heat going to get the body going is much harder for someone with a slow thyroid. You're
It's
still
interesting.
in range, so I wouldn't massively worry, but I guess it's saying you're tipping towards low thyroid rather than high thyroid. So high is very hyper and your body's going, 100 miles an hour, and then the lower is it's starting to slow down to get to that sort of tired state of stress rather than the really
Right.
fight and
So
flight.
this is an inverse relationship then. So because this ratio is on the high side, it means that it's low thyroid.
Yes.
Right. Got it. Okay, that's one thing. So that's good to know. And second, as you know, and I've talked about on the channel as well over the last few, because this is going to go out probably while I'm still on the fast. We'll probably get this out today or tomorrow. Is I'm doing a water fast at the minute. And one thing I've noticed is that my hands are freezing at night. And I just chalk that up to the fact that my body's having to work really hard because it hasn't had any food. And so it's in ketosis, and it's got to work. So it's focusing less on the extremities, but that would just seem to be exacerbating exactly what you're saying,
Yeah.
which I hadn't really noticed before. When I'm kind of eating normally, even on the lion diet, when I was doing the lion diet earlier this year, which is just meat, salt, and water, I don't normally have kind of cold hands and stuff, but I have noticed it the past few days since I started fasting.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think, as when we discussed before, I love what you're doing because you're exploring how your body's working and doing these things. If I had a client come to me and say, I want to do a water fast, I would say, make sure your body is in a state that it can cope with a water fast first, so it's kind of
I'm alive. It can cope.
exactly. And you're taking it in your own hands, which I love. So I'm not criticizing it, but if I was responsible for someone,
Of course.
I would obviously be more on the side of caution.
No, fair enough.
So we've then got the zinc and the copper one, and this is an interesting one, particularly when I see women, because it's looking at your hormone balance. So particularly the balance of estrogen and progesterone, testosterone in relation to each other. You're pretty much in balance there, so that is that's really good.
Good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. We'll give you a tick there, and then the next one is what's that? Sodium, magnesium.
Yeah.
Yeah, interestingly, this one again is an adrenal indicator, but you're fairly well in the range there. So if this was totally off and the others in relation to adrenals were totally off, you'd be more concerned. But this isn't looking too bad. It is slightly on the low side, so it does corroborate the other, which is it's more of a exhausted state of stress rather than a fight or flight state of stress is where your body is
Okay.
Now, I love this next one. Most people have a ratio like this that I've seen.
Okay.
So this is your calcium to magnesium, which is your
Right.
blood sugar.
Okay.
And what we see in a lot of people, your calcium is quite high, and relative to calcium, your magnesium is low. And that is common for a lot of reasons. So the magnesium in our foods is depleting as our soils become depleted, our crops aren't as rich in magnesium. Plus, we're eating less fruit and vegetables that contain magnesium in our diet. So it's having a double whammy. So generally, people are lower in magnesium. Then, as we discussed earlier, stress uses up magnesium. So we have a higher stress load than we ever used to. We've got environmental toxins, we've got day-to-day stresses. So all of that serves to deplete our magnesium. And the minerals kind of work together. So they can be synergistic, where you need one to support the other, or they can be antagonistic, where if one gets out of balance, it kind of depletes the other. And that's what we're seeing with the calcium and the magnesium, where the calcium is high, then your magnesium is more depleted. Right. And what can happen with this isn't just saying you've got calcium in your bones or in your blood. It might be that the calcium is in your circulation, which is interesting for you because you have aching joints. And so if the calcium isn't where it's supposed to be, which is in the bones, then that can lead to kind of aching joints and things like that. So again, getting the right magnesium for you, you push your magnesium up, that will then work to help bring down the calcium. So it's not a matter of, oh my God, I can't have any milk or dairy or anything with calcium in it. Yeah. It's more a question of I need to rebalance and bring up the magnesium. So that calcium comes down.
That makes sense. Which would kind of, again, it's exactly like you said, and it's me thinking, I was supplementing magnesium, but it's not working because it's not like the right kind. And so I hopefully in the next week, that should start to resolve itself a little bit, but we'll see.
You are optimistic. So this would have been building over years.
Yeah.
And so
No,
to
I know, and
improve
I
it,
realize with supplements as well that a lot of them you need to take them like regularly over an extended period of time. It's not you don't just take them one day and then you're fixed. It's like you really have to your body has to get used to having them again and that sort of thing. So it is something that we take every day. My wife takes it because she's perimenopausal and it helps with some of the symptoms of that. And but what's interesting is if her body's not actually getting it, I'll be curious to see what happens when I give her the new ones. I wonder if I maybe just won't tell her and I'll just switch them out and just start giving her the new one because they look exactly the same. And I do her sort of pill tray every like we're old. Jesus, we have like pill trays where we keep track of our pills every day. I was like, this is the beginning of the end. You realize that? But anyway, that's a side note. But yeah, it's yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and I'll switch them and see if that makes any difference in how she feels.
yeah,
Because she's taking it, but if she's not getting any benefit from it, then it's not really, maybe there's a bit of, oh, what's it called?
placebo.
Placebo, thank you, effect going on. But she takes some other stuff at the same time. So we did the classic thing, which we changed like 5 things at once. And so we don't know which one's
Don't know.
actually working or, because she's now doing keto diet. She doesn't do carnivore, but she does keto. So she does have things like avocados, and she has some of the vegetables that are low GL and things like that. So, but mainly she has eggs and she has eggs and avocados and things like that for lunch. And then, sort of chicken and something else for dinner. But anyway, yeah. Cool. Sorry.
Nice. I thought of something to say there and then it went out of my head. Yeah, no, what I was saying is what we want is a supplement that will solve the problem. And usually it's more than that. So, we obviously are used to going to the doctor and they will give us a medication and that will solve it. But if you're looking from a holistic approach, it's like, well, if you reduce the stress, that will help your magnesium. If you take a
Right.
supplement, that will help. So it's looking at the multiple things you can do rather than just the one
Yeah.
thing. That would be nice.
Unfortunately, I don't think the stress is going to go away. So we're going to have to manage it.
That's
Right.
the
What's
obvious.
next?
And well, I was just going to say on this one, so this is blood sugar, which is interesting
yeah.
for you as well, because you're just putting yourself into ketosis with your water fast. So this is looking at how your insulin is working in your body. So let me get this the right way around. I think it's the calcium helps to release the insulin and the magnesium helps to store the insulin. And so, what this is saying is that your body isn't as good as it could be in terms of managing blood sugar. And again, a lot of us have a profile like this because the calcium is high. And so all of those working together aren't kind of working optimally. So my next challenge for you, if you choose to accept it, is to get one of these blood glucose monitors because you would love that because you can then get live feedback on what your blood sugar is doing. So that's a really fun little test to do if
That's
you
all
want
I need is
more
another toy.
biofeedback.
Yeah. That's the thing that people wear on their arms that I see in the
Yeah,
gym all the time, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're diabetic, you need one and it's really
Yeah.
important. But it's probably, if you were looking to lose weight, I would say it's one of the most powerful tools because you can see when you eat something
Yeah.
what it's doing.
Exactly what it does.
If it spikes it. And I gave my mum one and she was like, oh, I went to M&S and had a sandwich and it went sky high, and then she can see. So it's a very helpful education tool, I find, for people.
And there's so much to this. And I know a lot of this, not this particularly what we're talking about, but particularly like the keto and the carnivore diet still is not extremely well researched. And so there's always new stuff coming out all the time. And I was watching something yesterday, and they were talking about how the insulin levels and how, like, when you eat something, you get a spike of insulin and then it kind of goes down, and how that affects your ketones. And essentially what they were saying is that it's way better to eat your meals. Like if you're doing one meal a day or you're having intermittent fasting of say 4 hours, to do that as early in the day as possible, because you have a natural spike in the morning. And if you can just ride the wave of that natural spike that of insulin when you get up in the morning, that you can kind of ride that, and then it mitigates everything else. And what it does is it allows your ketones to then kick in the rest of the day, where the research kind of before was maybe inconclusive or somebody hadn't looked at it. And so there's so many little, I guess what I'm getting to is there's so many little moving parts that you can tweak. It's like looking to sitting at a soundboard with like 48 levers that you can pull, and you're like, oh, well, if this one is high, then turn that one up a little bit, and then you can turn that dial over there. And it's, in one way, it's kind of exhausting, because there's just, there's so much, and everything changes constantly. The new research is coming out all the time. And then, you've obviously got one group of people who go, no, just eat vegetables. You've got the other group of people who are going, no, don't eat anything but red meat, ruminant meat, and water, and everything in between. And it's really interesting to, at least for me, to kind of see this information and to have these tools and all this data available now. I mean, look, when we were kids or when we were younger, like no one had ever even thought about all this stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like although I remember when I was a little kid, my wife, Freudian slip there, my grandmother used to tell me, she would always say, don't have too many starches. And starches were essentially carbs, because she was talking about mashed potatoes and like root vegetables and rice and all that sort of stuff. And she would be like, no, you want to eat mainly chicken, a few raw, a few vegetables, like steamed vegetables. And so she knew. And I think we forget this, that like 100 years ago, people knew instinctively what to eat and what not to eat. And I think, in the 60s, people knew what to eat. They knew, keep your starches down, right? Keep your carbs down, have some meat to go with it, and have some, fresh fruits and vegetables. There wasn't all the processed food, and this is sort of knowledge that we've had, I think, as a society for a long time. And what we've lost is we lost it when all of the ultra processed foods started becoming really popular. And then a lot of us have either forgotten or we've become completely disconnected from what real food actually. My son has no idea what real food is. He has no idea. Like, we'll make stuff for him at home and whatever, but 95% of his diet is shit. And he has no kind of concept of what real food is and how it affects him. And anyway, I think we've lost that over time, which is a shame.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. If you think about it, when we were growing up, we had access to less information. So our source of information was our grandmother, and that was passed down. Whereas now we're bombarded with so much information that in the same day, I could convince myself that I need to go carnivore, keto, vegan, you name it. Do you know what I mean? And so then you're left in the middle, being confused. And I think I said this last time, we sort of need to just stop and think, well, for me, how do I feel best? And then
exactly,
and then follow that and use the information. But it's the body, your analogy of a soundboard is absolutely right, because the body's amazing. So if you're, if you think about a car, you've got petrol, you put good fuel in the car, it goes. You put rubbish fuel in, it won't go.
You put diesel in, it kills it.
Exactly.
So you can't put the wrong thing in either, because that's really bad.
But in the human body, it's got so many adaptations. So you put crap fuel in and it will keep going. It will find another way. But over time, that will have an impact. But it takes a long time to show. So I think that's the difference with the body. If we haven't got enough glucose, it then goes into ketosis. We've even got a backup fuel mechanism. So there are so many things the body can do. But if you're starting to get symptoms, that's your body saying, right, I've had enough now. We need to get back on track. So, it is amazing, but complicated.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
So the last one is the iron and copper. You're slightly low there, but you're within range. This is sort of saying how you're using your iron in your body. And the only thing that's quite interesting in this is it can show a slightly elevated copper. So the copper is slightly elevated in relation to your iron, which can lead to elevated calcium around the joints. So it comes back to the calcium and comes back to your stiff joints and things, you know. So you kind of need to.
So do I increase iron then?
No, I wouldn't increase iron. I would increase your probably potassium. So coming back to your electrolytes, if you've got your potassium, that will help to get your copper back in balance. Zinc, oh no, it's not potassium. So the zinc will help to get your copper back into balance. So those two sort of work synergistically together. But iron is a funny one, and you know, supplementing iron can also be counterproductive. So you have to be really careful with putting in a single element. It might then, like your soundboard, have a knock-on effect somewhere else.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. No, that's fine. And also, what's interesting about this is I think a lot of this, because we did the hair sample, a lot of this will have been before. So this is when I was eating kind of a normal diet. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the stuff that I've done, being back on lion diet and then keto and that, won't be reflected in this. So this will be more my natural kind of state of eating rather than a diet state.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it takes 3 months, and that's the great thing with this test, is because it would have a sort of, here's your average over 3 months. So I wouldn't recommend retesting for a good, 6 months to a year, but then it will be really interesting having put your body through those different diets to see what's going on.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe June or July, and then do another one, because then I will have been sort of 6 months, on a carnivore diet or various things of it in between. I like this fasting thing that I'm doing. I mean, I'm on day Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm on day 3 of my water fast, and I actually quite like it so far. I may work this in and do it like once every quarter. Mm-hmm. And just maybe the last week of the quarter or something, just do a 7-day water fast, because I do actually feel quite good, and I think it'll be interesting, and it'll probably help keep me on track as well. But anyway, cool.
So what are these? I suppose what I'm going to say there again is, for your listeners, just be careful before you do a water fast, because there's certain, like I myself, I think I said to you earlier, Dave, I would be a lot more grumpy than you if I was on a water fast. I just don't think it would serve me at all, because my body needs its fuel. So it's, it's great to do it, but you need to proceed with caution with fasts.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Toxic ratios. What does that mean? They're all off the charts, but that seems to be acceptable.
Yeah.
So
you want your toxic ratios as high as possible. So to be honest, your gold star there, the only one you've got slightly is the iron to lead. And the reason we look at these ratios is because certain toxins can be antagonistic to minerals. Right. So, for example, when we spoke, I said for some reason I've got high arsenic, and that can be antagonistic to iron, and I'm low in iron. So just to supplement iron wouldn't help, because I need to work out how I'm going to get rid of that arsenic. So that's what you're looking at in then, or some things you might need selenium. So it's just looking at what are the toxic ratios there, but you've only got a little bit on the iron to lead. I mean, your fast would be helping to clear out anyway, so it would be helpful to see, as you say, in 6 months, whether that's had any impact on those toxic ratios.
Brilliant. Okay, happy with that. What have we got? So we've got these additional ratios down at the bottom. Is there anything interesting in here that we need to highlight?
No, I think what we've covered now is pretty much the highlights of the report, in terms of these are the different ratios, these are your toxic elements. The really important things that we've taken away from that are support your adrenals, so give love, vitamin C, magnesium, and your B vitamins. Make sure you're getting enough magnesium, so that's the big takeaway message there, is make sure you're getting enough magnesium in your diet.
Roger that.
and, manage your blood sugar. So
Yeah.
that would be the sort of third point. So when I look at this with clients, I'll have taken a big long case history, and then it's part of the puzzle that I fit in to the whole picture to help make their recommendations. But as you can see, it's quite a helpful tool to just corroborate something that you might have picked up or be thinking, or it can flag things that you hadn't noticed and then think, okay, that's something we need to look further into.
Yeah, for sure. So two things just to say quickly for anybody watching. Number one, this isn't sponsored by this company that did the test. I paid for this myself, and Susie did it for me, and she's doing this. It's not sponsored in any way, but I do want to show everybody a little bit more of what you get. So this is just one part of the analysis. There's also this entire page, which has a bunch of other elements. And I think these are probably just I'm guessing, but these are probably just the measured amounts. And then these are the amounts they use to calculate the ratios that you've talked through. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
So these are just the straight numbers. And there's a little bit of stuff at the top, which is personal information, which I'm not going to show. But you also, when you get this analysis done, if I just go down a little bit, so it actually has a whole set of further pages that explain a lot further about the metabolic typing, about the elements, about the ratios, and it gives you some recommendations in the document as well. So I just wanted to, if anybody's interested in doing this, I think it's really interesting. And I think, if you want to do it, reach out to Susie. She's Happy Healthy Longer on all social media, I think, and various places. And Susie can help you go through and get one of these if you want one. I think that's it for the report. Is that it? Do you want to?
Yeah, no, I think that's it as far as going through it is concerned.
Okay, I'll stop sharing that and I can look at you again. Yeah, I was looking off to the side because I was reading the report. Cool. So with all of that kind of taken in, the main thing is that I have a slightly slow metabolism. And what can I do for that? Is there anything I can do for that in particular, other than, or I don't know, does exercise and maybe continued exercise and weight training and that sort of stuff, is that going to help support the metabolism, or is there something particular I can do?
So to put it in context, most of us, our metabolism will get slower as we get older, which kind of makes sense. And as a nation, generally, our metabolism is getting slower because we have more stress and more rubbish food.
Right.
The fact that it's slow would, some people might just genetically be predisposed to slow, and some people would be more predisposed to fast. But it does relate back to your stress response. So if you think of you've got rest and digest. So people often talk of fight and flight and rest and digest, and we don't often talk about the one beyond that, which is like freeze, which is where your body's kind of going into a more of a shutdown mode. So you might see, we get people coming to the shop and they're like, I've got 5 minutes, they're definitely in fight or flight, and we just want to calm it down a bit. Then you have someone like me who's probably gone beyond the fight or flight, and I'm more in the slow.
Right.
And so, that is support the adrenals, like I said, and try and de-stress your life. That's the challenge.
Well, and I think for me, I had two questions, sorry, before I was going to jump in. One is, I think for me, the gym helps with that and the exercise helps with that. I think a lot of the stress I have is, I have, like everybody, we've got work stress, we've got family stress, we've got all that sort of stuff. What I was wondering is when they're doing the ratios and they're calculating this and you're looking and saying you have a slow metabolism, is that comparing that to a cohort of people my age, or is that comparing that to just people in general? Or do you know?
That's a good question. I don't know. I can check that one and get back to you, but I don't know off the top of my head.
I mean, I assume that's a big word. I assume that since they have your age, that they're comparing that to some sort of a cohort. And I'll be honest, I haven't read, it may tell you in the document itself. I haven't read the document because I wanted to wait to get you to explain it to me first, and then I would go back and read it. So I will have a read of it later, and maybe I'll put in the show notes or something if it says or doesn't say. But that would be the other interesting thing, is because you're right. I mean, our metabolism's definitely naturally slowed down. My metabolism's not the same as it was when I was 20. And I'm just wondering if if that's considered slow for my age, or if that's just slow because they've taken an average.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it is an absolute figure,
Right.
because the slow is a description of how your body is working. So it's not how it's working in relation to somebody else. It's saying that your metabolism is going slower, which therefore you need more protein and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if the whole country shifts, your body would still be the same. So I'm pretty sure it would be just an absolute,
Yeah.
which is based on all the research of all the data of all the mineral profiles they've had. These ones go into the slow, and these ones go into the fast.
Yeah. I'd like to see it versus the cohort.
That's your competitive nature.
But no, just being a data analyst and having run data teams for a long time, that's the thing that jumps out. But okay, cool. So reduce stress, fine. Have some.
Yeah, you're not doing that one, are you?
Yeah, I'll work on that like everyone else. Yeah, I'll just stop stressing. No, I'm being slightly flippant, but I do find things like exercise for me, and anyway, I think help with stress. It gets the physical stress and the I think some of the stuff that happens when you exercise and you do something that's strenuous on your body, I think that helps. And at least it does mentally as well. But I physically feel better if I'm exercising. I don't feel so tensed up, and I don't, do you know what I mean? And I don't know, when I get extremely stressed, what I find is my lower back basically just cramps up, and I essentially I can't even walk. And I have to, it usually takes me a day or two to be able to even move and to go anywhere. And that's the extreme physical representation of stress. But I find that only starts to happen if I'm not exercising.
Yeah.
If I'm exercising, then I think I'm able to work, and like, I'm some idiot online. I'm not a doctor. I don't know all the chemicals and whatever. If you want to go, there's tons of other doctors online with YouTube channels, and they'll tell you what all the chemicals are and how they all work, and they'll give you a biology lesson and all that. And I'm not that guy, but I know anecdotally that it definitely, I feel better if I do that. So I'll keep up the exercise, which I was trying to do anyway. I've got some better magnesium, so we'll try the magnesium. I was on L-lysine, but I've stopped taking the L-lysine because I'm not sure it's actually doing anything. Frankly, I get cold sores every once in a while, and I find it's quite helpful at keeping the cold sores away. But other than that, I feel like I don't want to take it unless it's actually doing something, and I don't think it's doing anything. And I have a multivitamin, and I take a daily aspirin, but pretty much that's it. And vitamin D and electrolytes. My pill of caddy is full.
Yeah. And just coming back to the exercise, I would say that if you exercise and you feel great after, then that's really good. If you start exercising and you feel really wiped out after, then that's another sign from your body that maybe that's a bit too much stress on the body. So it's listening to your body, but we're very good at switching off to the signals from the body and just going for it because the gym's good. And the gym is good if your body, it's still putting a stress on your body. So it's just whether your body can handle that. So always listen in and do what feels best.
Yeah, 100%. And like, again, I'm in my mid-50s. I can't train the way I could in my 40s, or certainly my 30s or my 20s, and I have to be mindful of that. So I was away from training for a long time, and then I went back, and everybody knows, they've heard my story of, I lost 3 stone a few years ago before COVID. And, I'd not done any exercise for probably 10 or 15 years, really, other than riding off-road motorcycles, which actually is quite strenuous. But other than that, I didn't really do much. And so I'm essentially starting over Do you know what I mean? Because anything I did when I was younger, I've lost any of that. And I think, I've had to kind of, again, I injured my shoulder a few weeks ago, and it's just like so frustrating. And then I wanted to move off of doing cardio and back more into weight training because, again, for the joints and everything else, the tendons and the ligaments and all that, the weight training is really good. And yeah, it's just trying to get it all. And you're right. And I, if I overtrain or start to push it just a little bit too much, my body just goes, yeah, no. So I'm hoping this fast will accelerate a little bit of the healing. And my shoulder already feels better. So I'm hoping that, because I'm not training while I'm fasting either, because I'm walking. So I go for a walk at lunchtime and stuff, but I'm not doing like running or weight training or anything like that, because I think that would be too much all at once.
Yeah.
I had 6 calories yesterday.
Oh my God.
And Tuesday. And 700 on Monday. So Monday was like a half day. So I did eat a little bit in the morning and I had a little bit at lunch, and then I started in the afternoon, but I'm kind of just ruling out Monday altogether. So really this is day 3, because I did Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So this is my 3rd day. But yeah, I've had 6 calories a day.
And when do you finish?
I'm going to finish Monday. I'm going to try and do 7 days.
Wow.
So we'll see. We're as you know, we're having this chat now. We're going to hang up when we're finished. We're going to hang up, and then we're both going to go see each other again in about an hour at another networking event that we're going to. And I've got a lot of those kinds of things coming up. And so I don't know how easy or difficult it's going to be. I find it's actually quite easy to literally just go nothing. It's so much easier than to choose and say, well, actually I can have some beef, or I can only have that. I can only have that. It's like water. Just give me water. I'll just have some hot water. That's fine. That's it. Like, it's so simple, and everybody's like, anyone will give you water, and you can just go, no, I'm not hungry. And it's so much easier on your mental load as well, in a way, because then you just go, I'm not having anything. And I do feel better today. I'll do a separate update for the people who watch who watch the channel all the time. But yeah, I feel I was pretty low energy yesterday. Mm-hmm. I was pretty tired last night. I went to bed early. I've been to bed early the last couple of nights, but I feel better today. So I think I'm like fully like into it now. My body's kind of switched over, and yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Wow. Good. Yeah. Good luck. Look forward to hearing how you are at the end of it.
Yeah. And I've been losing 1 kilo a day in weight, which seems like a lot. But we'll see. I don't expect all of that. I mean, some of that will come back, obviously, when I start eating again. And, but yeah, that's an interesting side effect as well. So yeah, it's all good so far.
Very
I'm
good.
smiling.
Keep smiling.
Huh? Keep smiling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Where can people find you?
So on Instagram, I'm at Happy Healthy Longer, and I'm on Facebook, and then Susie Willows is my LinkedIn address. So yeah, any of those.
And where's your shop?
That's in Oxted in Kent.
Yep. Cool. And I think that's it for today. So I may have you back on at some point, if that's okay. Maybe we'll randomly, if you want to come on and talk about
your blood glucose monitor, then we'll go through that one.
Oh, jeez. Don't. Just that's all I need is more data, more macros to put into my sheet. My macros for the day, 4.5 grams of carbs, because I do still eat my creatine gummies, because basically I can just suck on them and they just go away to nothing anyway. So that's not still, for me, it counts as nil by mouth. And that's it. And then I have usually 2 cups of coffee throughout the day, which is 6 calories. And then I have 0 fat and 0 protein. That's my macros for the week.
Rather you than me.
Right. All right. I will see you later. Thanks very much.
See you later. Thanks.
All right, cheers. Bye.